Redditors whose marriage lasted less than a year. What went wrong? Story 1. We expedited the marriage BC. She was preggo, and I loved her already, so wasn't concerned about it. I was working crazy hours so she could stay home with the baby, and our schedule started shifting so we didn't spend as much time together. She had postpartum, and started playing online role-playing games all night, and met a guy who didn't work, and lived off of his mother, so he had all the time to talk to her. Long story short, she kissed our daughter, gave her to me, and ran off with him. Fast forward over a decade, and we're fine as friends now, and my daughter is cuddled up beside me as I type this, playing on her tablet. The karma is time and lifestyle haven't been kind to her, and our daughter would rather be with me, and trust me more. Edit. Thanks for the gold. Sorry I went to bed before all of your questions. I'll get to them as I can. Story 2. Man, this story sucks. College roommate. He met a girl junior year that our entire group thought was wrong for him, but love is blind. Fast forward to summer after graduation and they are to get married in the fall. I am in the wedding. They were apart for most of the summer as he was working and she was finishing school and putting the wedding together. We converge on her hometown in Colorado. Wedding goes down, big reception, lots of money dropped on this one. We see them off to the honeymoon and I return to St. Louis to home sweet home. 7 days later, I get a call from him asking if he can come stay with me. Sure, I pick him up at the airport single. At his insistence we hit the nearest bar, and I get to hear all about how she cheated on him over the summer but went ahead with the marriage because she felt pressured by how much her parents were paying. She told him pretty much as soon as they were alone after the ceremony, not at any time during the 7 to 10 days they were together before the wedding. She insists they go on the honeymoon to work things out, but refuses to be intimate as she still has feelings for the other guy, so he never returns to her. Gets checked for all the STDs negative, and has the marriage annulled within 6 months. Belinda, you for what you did to my friend. Story 3. My ex was previously engaged to a man with a terminal illness. They were together for many years, but he broke it off for her own good. She was also abused by her father, and there was a lot of baggage that came with that too. We were very good friends in high school and reconnected over 10 years later. She was completely open with me about everything, so I knew as I was getting into. With a broken heart and broken family, she found comfort in an old friend, and what I feel happened was she mistook safety and normalcy for love. She was way out of my league by many standards, so I tried to give her everything she needed to make her happy. But she was dealing with a lot of mixed emotions. Because of her abuse, she very rarely enjoyed and thought she was letting me down as a wife. Even though I told her I knew this going in and never expected anything and never pressured her one bit. When she needed space, I gave her space. But when she needed somebody to talk to, at first it was me, but I didn't have the history that her and her ex-fiancé had. She would call him in the middle of the night at his third shift job. At first I tried to be understanding of it, but it hurt. I knew she still loved him. We struggled, tried separating. It was a roller coaster. Things were back on the way up. While lying in bed one night she asked me, is it worth it? Meaning all of the ups and downs over the past year. I said of course it is. I love you, as long as we love each other enough. It's worth it. She looked back at me with a look of guilt, and that's when I realized she didn't. Not another word was said. I got up and slept on the couch, left for the final time the next morning. That was 8 years ago. I've been in a few relationships since, but ever remarried. I don't expect many of you have read this far, but that's okay. It was kinda therapeutic to write it out, so thanks stranger on the internet. You asked a question that nobody close to me has in years because back then I just brushed it off because I didn't want to talk about it. At least we didn't have kids or any jointly owned assets, so our divorce was just a breakup with a little paperwork. Edit. Wow, thanks for all the support. And the gold kind stranger. I wrote this and went to bed, not expecting many replies. Cheers to you all. Story 4. My mom's marriage to her first husband was only a year and a half at most. He was diagnosed with cancer and he said that he wanted to marry her before he died. So they got married and took a honeymoon to Hawaii, because Head always wanted to go there too. Edit. He passed away. That was what ended the marriage. Some have asked for clarification. Story 5. She had another boyfriend when I proposed and kept him around while planning our wedding. They got married after our divorce. Don't get married while you're in the military. Listen to the signs. Story 6. This one's kind of up. Happened to a friend. We were deployed to Okinawa. My friend married his girl prior to deployment. He found out mid-deployment that she cheated on him, but the way he found out was kind of messed up. He checked his FB one day and saw a message from some dude he didn't know. The guy straight up told him that he slept with his wife. She didn't say she was married, and when he checked her FB he saw she was married to my friend. He felt guilty and had to message him. My friend wasted no time and divorced her in Oki. I'm not sure if that was possible. I just remember him doing some kind of legal work the following day. Story 7. Long story short, cancer. Dated for a few years and decided to move in together with her roommates. The same year we did that, she gets diagnosed with ovarian cancer, which is why I am very angry at the attitudes doctors have when it comes to women. If they allowed her to get her tubes tied like she wanted years ago, they might have found it at an earlier stage, but there's no good symptoms or signs of early stage ovarian cancer. We were going to get married this summer, but her oncologist said to move it up, so we got married this past September. She died in December. Story 8. My cousin was married for 18 hours, or something ridiculous like that. To hear her tell it, there was a really apocalyptic argument on their wedding night over where they went from there. The moral of the story appears to be that before you get married, You and your spouse should have roughly compatible ideas of what you're looking for out of a marriage, how many kids, when to have them, where you live, whether you both work, money issues, etc. That's not stuff that just works itself out magically over time. Edit why the does this have over 7,000 karma. Story 9 husband decided to start an affair within 3 months of marriage, found about 6 months after, still maintains there was nothing wrong, just thought it would have been over before I found out. Oh, and our baby was only 6 months old, what a catch of a man, started divorce proceedings after waiting the year minimum. Story 10 mine lasted just a little over a year, but close enough, married my girlfriend of 4 years right before getting deployed, she didn't have anything to keep herself busy while I was gone, job, hobby, etc., ended up getting into drugs while I was gone, then I got her pregnant during my 2-week leave in the middle of the deployment. She felt so trapped that she had talked me into agreeing to give our child up for adoption. Once she was born I was so blindly in love with her that I would have agreed to darn near anything she suggested. She ended up leaving me a week after our daughter was born, and canceling the adoption, taking her back from the adopting parents. Long story cut short, she got back into drugs, pretty sure she wasn't on them while pregnant with my daughter, had 2 more kids with whoever was her dealer at the time, and CPS ended up stepping in, which gave me full custody of my daughter. Not a day goes by when I look at my daughter and wonder what I was thinking, and I'm so glad to have this wonderful, crazy little girl in my life. Edit thanks everyone for the replies. I normally only check Reddit on my phone, and the app is terrible about showing that you have replies. I'm sorry if I missed responding to your question. Story 11 she started feeling trapped as in, my expectation of monogamy was too much, so she discovered polyamory, decided she wanted to be polyamorous with her boss, and that it was worth opening the marriage no matter what. She was pretty surprised when I divorced her. Story 12 another abuse story. The final straw was when he held me down after 6 weeks of marriage and anally raped me, telling me over and over you can't rape your wife. Took another month to figure out how to leave and put my plan in motion. Moved 400 miles away, started over, then believed him when he said he went to detox and recovery and gave him one more chance. Less than 2 weeks later, I had a gun put to my head, an ashtray thrown across the room at my face, and security had to remove him from my job twice. Had to get the police involved to get him out of my rent house. Then disappeared again, safe now, been 21 years since then, and am now married to the love of my life. Edit while this blew up. Thank you all for the love and support and the gold, kind stranger. I will answer a few of the recurring questions here. 1. I was 17 when we met and incredibly naive. He said he was 25. We met in college, in a psychology class of all things. We dated for 5 months, and married 4 weeks after I turned 18. I found out he was actually 32 about 6 weeks before the wedding, but he explained that away with I was afraid you wouldn't go out with me if you knew my age. And you're so beautiful. I bought it hook, line and sinker too. He was never perfect. He preyed on my insecurities and naivety. I was book smart, but had no common sense. He did hit me once before the wedding. After the invitations were sent out, of course, he immediately apologized and told me it would never happen again. He was just stressed because of the wedding. 3. I couldn't call the cops or ambulance after the incident because he took the phones and locked them in a drawer. When I did go to the police, it was my word against his, and there was nothing I could do. For a helpful relative gave him my phone number after he supposedly got out of detox rehab. He was a smooth talker, and had a lot of my family convinced that he had changed. There was more second chance talk from some of my family than from him. I had already begun divorce proceedings, but put them on hold when he came to live with me. We were only together another 5 weeks before I was gone again. No matter what bad decisions I made, I never deserved any of it, and no other human being does either. Story 13 nothing really went wrong. Nothing really went at all. We had been dating for 7 years, so we thought it was a safe bet. Realized a year into our marriage that we were better as separate people, and it sucked. There were a ton of tears, a whole lot of begging not to let it end, a whole bunch of trying new things, living separately, splitting money, etc. so that we could be apart together, but it just didn't work. We were just live-in friends when it came down to it, and I think too, that if we hadn't gotten married, we never would have seen it. It was sort of the impetus for us both to move on. As shitty as that might sound, it was a shake-up in our otherwise completely humdrum stable life, and it ended up working out for the best, but it sucked for a long time. Story 14 friend of mine bought a house in a small town with his new wife, and he continued to commute 1 hour each way to work in our city. She worked part-time in the small town. Around the 10-month mark of their marriage, she cheated on him with a mechanic in that small town. That was 5 years ago, and she's still with a mechanic, but he won't commit, lol. Story 15 when I got home from Afghanistan, my wife at the time admitted that she had with 23 guys while I was gone. Needless to say, our marriage ended real quick. Story 16 my ex-wife and I lasted about 7 years, but her first marriage ended pretty much right at the year mark. They were both 19, she got pregnant, they got married and tried to make their life work on one 8-hour income, with her as a stay-at-home mom with no money, no car, and no friends in the same place in life she was. Day in and day out stress drove them apart. Story 17 shouldn't have ever walked down the aisle in the first place, but abusive relationships with your head. Thinking back now about the cold feet I had and realized that they were warning bells, not cold feet. Final straw was cheating on me. Hurt like, but I am ultimately thankful because that woke me the up, and then oh holy, all those times he hit me or choked me, yeah that's pretty up too, the mental game abusers play can seriously mess with your perception of reality. Story 18. I was married for slightly more than a year. We were high school sweethearts and literally got married right after high school. Our whole marriage was plagued with terrible life events. We moved closer to her college but had to move back due to finances, and right at this time my grandmother had died. We were pretty poor after moving back home, but we managed for a while. Things were even looking nice. We had moved out of my mom's house and had our own apartment again. We were working, had money, and were enjoying our time together. I got deathly ill and this put me out of work. With medical bills and rent we were back to struggling. I had a lot of mental issues like anxiety and depression at the time as well, and so did she. She started to get really close to a coworker while I was out of work too. They're dating now. I moved out in November 2015, we were married in July 2014. We were officially divorced in April last year. We haven't talked much since and it's still difficult sometimes to think about, but I've gotten much better over the past few months. Edit. This got bigger than I expected. I just want to specify that I don't blame my ex for our divorce. This was just a small look into all the issues that led to it, and there were plenty of shortcomings from both of us that led to it. I don't have any hard feelings towards her anymore. Story 19. What went wrong? Does being stupid count? We had been dating for about 3 years, got to a crossroads, both of us finished school. I was thinking about what job offer I wanted to accept and where I'd have to move. He was having a major freak out about not being together, so he convinced me to get married. It wasn't that hard. I was apprehensive about moving to a strange town and marriage seemed like a better idea. After marriage I went to work. He decided he wanted another degree. Okay, then about 6 months into his new studies, he gets recruited for a job 1,000 miles away. He took the job without telling me, but we pack up and move. Now he's working, and I'm working. But he's working at a job he's really excited about, and I'm working at a shitty, low-paying job because it's the only thing I can find. Then he gets headhunted by another company. We move again, only now we are living in a rented trailer because it's the only thing we can find on short notice. He's working 12-hour days and I'm stuck at home. No job, no car, no friends. Truthfully, I wasn't the best of marriage partners. I'm going crazy, stuck at home all day with no car and no company except the TV. When he does come home, after working a 12-hour day he's exhausted. I'm giving him about not getting out of the house ever. He starts hanging out with his work friends, probably to avoid me. He starts cheating with the women at work. No idea how many other women there were, but I know of at least 2. I know about these women, because by now I've started to develop a circle of friends, mostly wives of the people he works with. They tell me when I confronted him, he told me that he just didn't realize how hard marriage would be. I took the car and drove home, left him in that shitty trailer with no car. Some months later, he asks me to file for divorce. I told him no way he could file, and explained the grounds to his attorney and the judge. He sent me the divorce papers in the mail. He did call me about 10 years later and apologized for being such an. But really, it wasn't all him. Story 20. Together on and off for 11 years. Married on our 11-year anniversary. That was August 23rd, December 22nd she passed in an accident. Oddest part may be that my father lost his wife on the same day when he was the same age. Please read the reply I made to myself on this comment. Wasn't sure whether to reply or edit. Responded to myself again. Hope you all see it. It's down there somewhere. Story 21. He went through police academy while we were engaged and became a member of the police force the week before we married. When we returned from our honeymoon and he was presented with all his service goodies, the guns, the honor badges, etc., his power-hungry, violence-obsessed side decided to make an appearance. He came obsessed with having his way. Everything must go and everyone must do as his plan dictated because he was the law. This mostly impacted me because I instantly became his property. He was also a nasty alcoholic, which he managed to keep secret while in academy. I hoped naively at age 23 that he would reform with a new responsibility. I was wrong. His favorite habit was to get drunk off cheap vodka and play with his service weapons. When he would go out drinking with his buddies, I had developed a routine of removing the clips from his guns and triple-checking to make sure no round were in the chamber. I would put everything back in place the next morning before he would go to work. He had always been verbally and mentally abusive. I was stupid. No one would ever want me. I was so lucky that he at least tolerated me. He enjoyed practicing his takedown moves on me. For reference, he was a 275 pounds weightlifter, while I am 58, 130 pounds. He choked me out multiple times to the point of losing consciousness, but I was afraid to say a word. He convinced me that I couldn't call the cops on him because I am the police. They won't believe you over me. The straw that broke the camel's back was a night that he went out drinking and came home in the mood for some confrontation. He woke me up demanding. I refused because he was sloppily drunk and reeked of cigarette smoke and alcohol. In his anger at my rejection, he dragged me from bed and proceeded to beat me. He had never physically hurt me before. He beat me until the only place that wasn't completely bruised and swollen was my face. He was smart enough to avoid places that couldn't be concealed by clothes and makeup, and then he took his service weapon and pointed it at my head and pulled the trigger because I had removed the clip and bullets. His attempt to shoot me was a failure. Enraged by this, the beating continued until he exhausted himself and passed out on the floor. I packed a small bag, grabbed my cat, and left. I filed for divorce a few days later, and never went back. My attorney stood proxy for me at the hearing, and IB tried to close the chapter on that book. It's been 7 years, and I still have nightmares and difficulty with intimacy. We were married exactly 11 months. Edit. Thank you all for your kind words and support. I've never told this in a public forum before. It felt great to let it free, so to speak. Edit 2. Thank you for the gold. You're a fantastic group of people, and you helped make a scary thing for me turn into a positive turning point in my mental well-being. Thanks for taking the time to send your well wishes. I promise to pay it forward. If you or someone you love is struggling with domestic violence, please feel free to share my username so they can send me a private message. I'm more than happy to share the love and support. Story 22. After spending a year together, we got married so he wouldn't get deported. I took care of him, paid all the bills, paid to sponsor him. Turns out he was already married in his own country. Yup, took me a while to stop being bitter over the thousands of dollars I got conned out of. My dad had recently died, and I suppose he saw me like a lion sees a wounded gazelle. Edited to add him Canadian. He is Swiss New Zealander holding both passports. We met while he was here in Canada visiting. He fled when he knew he was caught and was eventually deported. I have no idea what happened after. Story 23. We were kids when we got together. Grew up together but in different directions. We got married to fix the relationship. The day after our wedding, my dad was hospitalized with alcohol-related things and almost died. My new husband told me he would not go with me to the hospital and hoped my dad died since he felt he deserved to die. Yeah. Dad lived, still going strong, and kicked the drinking completely for almost a decade now. Ex-husband jumped in front of a train a year after the divorce. So that's interesting how that ended up. Edit. Wow. Thanks for the replies. To clarify a few things, my dad was not involved much in my life due to the drinking, but I was still upset understandably. We actually were not on honeymoon yet, slated to start in 2 weeks. Dad was on the upturn by then. Ex-husband had jumped into a relationship immediately after we separated, suspicious, and the girl left him about a year later. This was close to when we divorced, so I guess it was too much. According to his best friend, he had descended into what appeared to be schizophrenia, vaguely confirmed by stacks of notebooks of gibberish. His mother had the disease. His own father had a moderate alcohol problem and his mother was mentally ill. He had a good relationship with his dad though. As for me, it was difficult. I was not in a good point in my life when I found out. I blamed myself. I held on to that misery for over 5 years, torturing myself. I finally meet my current husband and he encouraged me to get therapy while he supported my mental health. I'm now much better. I get sad thinking about it sometimes, but overall I'm happy. Story 24. The day after the wedding, a sheriff showed up on our doorstep with child support papers for a 3-month-old baby. Turns out he had been sleeping with his coworker. I was willing to look past the indiscretion, but when he refused to take responsibility for his child, I couldn't handle it anymore. The kid shouldn't have to suffer because his dad is an idiot. Divorce was final 11 months after our wedding day. Story 25. Buddy of mine found out the night before the wedding his soon-to-be wife slept with her ex. He goes through with it, and as the vicar ends the ceremony he tells all, in front of everyone, throws the ring away and asks the vicar if he does takebacks. Story 26. Though it didn't happen to me, a friend of mine got married to a woman he had been with for a long time. They had children and a home together as well. The relationship was failing and they both thought that finally getting married would save it. Spoiler alert, it didn't. Story 27. Well, this story doesn't really belong because we married right after high school in 2011. Still currently married, but separated and paperwork has been finished for the divorce. I think this will help me in any case. We were together for about 2 years before getting married and had already lived together due to my parents' house being foreclosed. We got married and things were great. No issues. I was going to school and working full-time. My wife starts a new job somewhere and suddenly starts texting this guy daily who worked under her. During this time I was getting roughly 4 hours of sleep if I was lucky and under a lot of stress at work due to a promotion. So naturally, what free time I got, I'd play games to help with stress. I guess she didn't like that I had a hobby and she didn't. I told her I had felt uncomfortable with how much they were texting. She wanted me to hang out and meet the guy, but it only angered me about the situation and created a bigger rift between us. For weeks after all this in September 2014, she said she was unhappy and was going to stay with a friend to decide whether she wanted to stay married or not. Most people would begin and claw and say no, don't go, but in the type to give people space when they need it. Week later she texts me that it's over and she'll be getting her stuff. For the next month I slept on the carpet because I didn't have enough money for a bed. Worst months of my life. 5 or 6 months later she broke down while we were changing the car insurance to our own names. Turns out the guy was mentally and physically abusive. She was pregnant and he forced her to get an abortion because his family was religious and they weren't married. Dumb old me had helped her through it all because I still loved her. She dumped him and I moved into her apartment. It lasted roughly 4 months after I dropped $3,000 on a 7-day trip to Disneyland. She let me know she still loved him. So, I saved money and left. It's late 2015, months after I moved out, and she says she was pregnant and the doctor gave a pretty familiar date of conception. I was shaken at first finding out I was going to be a father. I looked past all of the horrible months I've been through and had her move in. My baby boy Micah was born March 1, 2016. Happiest day of my life. Becoming a father was everything to me. Even the hardships of being a new parent with so much responsibility could keep me down. 5 months ago the guy texted her requesting a DNA test, claiming it was his baby, that they had at a party during the dates of conception. She was adamant she knew it was mine and said he wasn't even at the party. I finally said let's get it so hell leave us alone. Took a DNA test. I wasn't worried. I knew my little boy was mine. He was too perfect. In the back of my mind there was a worry, of course. Finally got an email about the results. I opened it at work outside my office. Results read that I was 100 not related to my son. I collapsed. Right now marks 3 weeks of me being moved out. I know it's nothing similar to what other parents have felt, but I feel like I lost my child. Others say it will pass, but I feel like there is no end to the pain I feel. If you stuck through this whole story, thank you. Enjoy the blessings of marriage and kids. Some aren't as lucky. Know the person you are marrying. It will save heartache in the future. TLDR, found out the baby we had wasn't mine. Edit. Thank you for all the messages. I woke up this morning to these and it honestly has made my day. Thank you, kind stranger, for the gold. I live in California, for those wondering about child support and all. Still don't know what the future holds and what it'll do. It wasn't a healthy environment for me mentally. So here I am trying patch it all up. Again, thank you all. Story 28. I went to school with a girl who got married in July 2016 after 3 months of dating a guy. They got divorced in November 2016, after the presidential election. Turns out one of them was an extreme conservative and the other was an extreme liberal, and this was not discovered until then. Story 29. Sort of related. I just wanted to tell this story. So I work as staff for weddings, setup, breakdown, serving, cleaning, cooking if need be, etc. I'm in for another day at work and we're doing a pretty big wedding. All separately plated restaurant style rather than buffet, which is a lot more work. I was already checked out for this wedding and I was absent-mindedly setting dishes up when my boss comes in, has us all huddle together and tell us that the bride has late-stage cancer and would die by the end of the year, and that we should make this the best service we could ever give. When she showed up, she was smiling, laughing and joking with everyone, and she was without a doubt the most fun person we had worked for. They were all heartwarming people and glad to experience the big day. We worked our asses off. There were no mistakes that day. We had blisters on our feet, our arms and legs could barely move once it was all said and done, but we had never been so proud to staff a wedding in our lives. At the end of it, the bride and groom came through and hugged everyone who worked that day. It was bittersweet working that day, but we made that wedding the best wedding they could experience. It's been over a year, and I hope that the families are all doing well now. Story 30. Married her because my said so, not my brain. She maintained several online affairs in exchange for items in EverQuest, which she hated until I told her to play for a bit to see if she really liked it. Ended up coming home one day about 9 months into our marriage and heard the unmistakable sound of her being. Confronted them, he ran away. I told her I was going to go spend the weekend at my best friend's and that I wanted her and all of her out by Monday. Filed for divorce immediately. Was contacted by the guy she cheated on me with. She'd been cybering dudes for months and using fake pics. She finally decided to cross the physical line and this guy took the bait. He had weeks worth of chat logs. He offered to testify in open court about it. At the hearing, he said his piece. The judge looked at her with her best woulda look and gave me my divorce and gave her nothing. Story 31. Was married for 10 months, nearly 5 years ago. Wife cheated for another man, who is still with him 4 years on. Messy divorce. 110. Wouldn't do it again. Story 32. We met and started dating right after boot camp. Like so many others, we at least dated for about 3 years before marriage though. But all the while it turns out we were terrible for each other. Hindsight is 20/20. There were tons of red flags. He went on deployment a week after our courthouse wedding. When he got back, things went downhill fast. I went back to my mom's. He cut off communication almost entirely. When I finally got him on the phone to talk, he said he just didn't want to be married to me or anyone else. Right then, I began divorce proceedings. He still wanted to be boyfriend and girlfriend, but by then I was picking up on this red flags and ready to sever it completely. Once it was finalized, I sent him his copy of the decree and haven't seen or heard from him since. I do wonder if he's happy at least. He was super high maintenance and I'm totally not. I know he had his demons from before the military. I hope he's at least come to terms with them. Story 33. Not my relationship. My older sister's, the marriage wasn't the best from the beginning. While in transit with friends to spend Christmas at my parents', my sister's ex hit a patch of black ice and rolled their car at 55 miles per hour. His best friend wasn't buckled in and was thrown through the sunroof and killed. Her ex-husband spiraled into depression and it ended the marriage 8 months in. Lots of things happened that led to the split, but this was the one tragic incident to really push divorce into motion. Story 34. Got married after 5 months. He wanted to move to Washington and virtually forced me to do it since I didn't want to. Quit my job and house and stayed at a hotel a couple of days. The day before moving he said he fell out of love and would go without me, left me heartbroken, homeless and jobless. Bonus, he didn't move to Washington. He's in Davenport, Florida, around 10 minutes away and got a boyfriend after a day of leaving me. Story 35. He died. Edit. Wow, this is the quintessential I wrote something, went to bed, and woke up shocked anyone had cared, and thanks for the gold. Thanks for all your kind words. It was years ago and I'm happily remarried with a baby now. He had leukemia and had a bone marrow transplant before we met. He was doing well and then 5 months after we got married, his transplant started savagely attacking his body graft versus host disease. Kinda the opposite of when your immune system attacks your transplant, because here, your transplant is your immune system, which attacks your whole body as a disease. He died 6 months and 1 week after we got married, just over 2 years after we met. Story 36. My dad's second marriage lasted 5 months. I remember moving into my old stepmom's place when I was a kid and then, less than a school year later, moving right back out. I had a stepsister who was physically handicapped from birth. She could walk very slowly and laboriously with a walker, but primarily used a wheelchair. My stepmom was so protective of her. My stepsister was 16, and my stepmom would cut her food for her, like she's not mentally handicapped whatsoever, and my stepmom was treating her like a kindergartner, which obviously made stepsister hate stepmom. Dad tried to get stepmom to let up. The stress of the poor relationship between mother and daughter led to stepmom and my dad fighting constantly. Dad tried to get therapy for everyone, and no one would bite. Dad divorced her and she hated his guts for not being strong enough for her daughter, with whom my dad had the best relationship. It's 10 years later and I ran into stepsister at the store recently. She's doing really well, graduated with her master's in linguistics and teaching some undergrad courses at the local college. Stepmom is single and still trying to manage every aspect of her life, but stepsister isn't letting her anymore. None of my business, I guess. Story 37 was married in July and found out in November that he had been cheating on me the entire time we were dating and married. This was quite a few years ago. I'm now happily married to another man who is pretty amazing, so I do believe that everything happens for a reason, even the stuff that seemed shitty at the time.